Mr. Forbes, how are you?
Good evening, Dr. Lee. Aye, all good. Yes, all good.
Thank
All
you so
good.
much for joining me. Congratulations on becoming a published author.
Brilliant. I'm actually quite, listen, not excited, that's not the right word. Quite excited. Good. You see it in print and see people have a book. I haven't seen it, I haven't got my copy.
I
Everybody
know.
else, no, listen, I'm pretty proud. I didn't pat myself, but no, pretty proud of what I put.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Excited.
Now, I mean, we've talked many times about stuff that has never made it to the final edit in your book or mine. So I thought, not only will we talk about the book tonight, but there's a couple of things that we discussed that they were maybe touched on in the book, but I'd like to expand on them just so that people kind of understand them. So what I wanted to start with is we were talking one day and I remembered a statement about a guy who ran out the woodland strip at the New Battle End towards Redwood House, and he ran. The phrase was like a bat out of hell, and he just disappeared from the inquiry. But you had been doing other inquiries quite close to there, so could you expand a bit on that and the guy in the red sweatshirt and the direction he was running in, that sort of thing?
The man in the red sweatshirt, Sandra, to me, was as important as Mark Kane. He's on New Battle Road, remember? He's only 100 yards away from where Jodi's lying. He's running, he's scared. If I remember correctly, the witness is back in hell, but he actually says he was out fighting. He nearly got run over as he's running off the road. Now, you're 100 yards away from where somebody's mutilated. But they never traced him. Going by memory now, the police went to the local tattoo shop and tried to inquire who the boy was in the red hoodie top, right? And they just left it.
Yeah.
So, after my book was finished, I've added a small part in. Garages came to my attention. Now, you mentioned Red Hall House, is it?
Redwood.
Redwood House. Now, if you go to Redwood House, as you know, up New Battle Road, it's very discreet. You could walk and drive up that road 100 times. You would never know that house exists. But you wouldn't know Home Farm existed because it's in the dip. Anyway, I went to investigate it because of a knife and a skip at the back of these garages. Oh, listen, I had to walk and jump over. Sorry?
The garages are at Home Farm.
Yes. They're all farm buildings. Like sheds. And they were turned into mechanics, spray painters. So when I started making inquiries, there were five or six garages were occupied by local men, mechanics, spray painters. 2 or 3 of them were involved in a stock car racing. Bangers.
Can you just give me 2 seconds?
Yes.
For some reason, my battery's just about to run out. Hang on.
Now, come on now.
How professional is that?
Look, you
forgot to put
sociology. Yeah. See what I meant to look at these garages, Sandra? I couldn't even find them. When I drove into Home Farm, I couldn't find these. They're now derelict, but I couldn't find where the garages were or where the skip was. I spoke to locals and they took me and showed me. Now, at that garage, Joseph Jones, John Ferris, and Shane Mitchell were regular people there. Joseph Jones worked there at the weekend. Sometimes he was one of his uncles. And the rest of them were involved in stock car racing. Now, a knife was found there. It's in the book. There's a large Bowie knife. Now, a tradesman with a knife or tools, like I'm a joiner, if I see a nice hammer or a nice chisel, I know the difference between that and a cheap chisel. A car mechanic told me the knife was that good that they Googled it and it was an expensive Bowie knife found in a skip. That man usually looked at that files and that Bowie knife doesn't exist. Now, they sent men in right close to this garage and they done forensic. They emptied the skip, they were looking for a tip of a knife and they never found it. But we can't find that Bowie knife. We've looked extensively.
Yeah.
Now, while I was looking at that, I'm thinking, who would know where this garage is? The man in the red sweatshirt was running towards the garages. Now, if you know New Battle Road and where he was seen, it's maybe 200 yards up the road.
Yeah.
Man in the red sweatshirt, he's running diagonally towards Home Farm. Now, is that John Ferris? This is my opinion, only my opinion. I'm deviating a bit. Only my opinion, that could be John Ferris. Or one of the three.
Why do you think? Because there was something about people talking about the injuries and the police got involved.
Listen, this is what even made it worse. The garages were subject to serious police attention. Police were threatening the garages, the owners and the occupiers of the garages, that they were going to close them down unless they had revealed how they knew about special knowledge. Now, special knowledge, some people knew about Jodi's injuries.
Yeah.
They had special knowledge of how Jodi had been damaged, butchered, mutilated. Now, how did they know that? Now, at the time when I started looking in further, I was told that one of them, I don't want to name these people because they're really innocent, right? But I feel like it. One of them allegedly had an affair with a police photographer, the one that me and you looked at very extensively because we wanted that there.
Yeah.
Allegedly, he had an affair with a police photographer. And the police photographer, Pillow Talk, has described Jodi's injuries to him. He's obviously telling other people in the garage, and now there's 7 or 8 mechanics, and there's people in the stock car race, and they can tell you specific injuries on Jodi Jones. Now, that can get you convicted. Well, that can get you years in prison. If you know a deceased person's got certain injuries at special knowledge, that can get you convicted. Now, they never faced up. Me, did they have an affair with a police photographer? Maybe. Remember the man in the red sweatshirt from there, who works here, who knows he skips here and it's away out the road and nobody really knows where it is. If he tell all his pals in the stock car racing, my understanding is, some people knew in the stock car racing all the damage to Jodi. They either found it through a police photographer or somebody with special knowledge. The photographer or the man in the red top.
Now, and for people that are not tied up with the legal jargon, what you mean by special knowledge is either somebody that saw the injuries and was speaking about them, or somebody that was told by somebody that saw the injuries. That's the only way they could know. Because obviously those pictures were never in the public domain. Details of a lot of the injuries, especially back then, were never in the public domain. So it has to have been somebody that saw them or was told by somebody that saw them.
The police were at that garage a week after it. A week after the murder, people had special knowledge of Jodi's injuries.
Yeah.
How? Either the police photographer, which is possible, right? Or somebody told somebody. Somebody for the locus or the crime passed on to somebody. Now, I was disappointed, I'll tell you the truth. When I heard Shane Mitchell was here, I was thinking, I didn't want that one. But listen, he was here. He used to go in and out with his pals. Joseph worked here. John Ferris was a regular, and so was others, all Mayfield that were into racing. And that puzzled me. Now, when we go back to the men on the mopeds, me and you both know the 2 men on the mopeds, clothing changed several times.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Did one of the red top four?
The description.
Yes, definitely. All the time. I've always been the impression, and I put it in my book, that the colour left on that moped. Yeah. Everybody for years has believed Ferris and Dickie jumped on that moped and disappeared. Why do you believe they 2 men? They've covered up that murder. So day one, as soon as they come forward 5 days later, they've cut their hair, burnt mopeds, burnt clothes.
And I'm going to come to that in a bit, because there's something else I thought about. Just saying that Shane knew that garage and he used that garage as well.
Yes.
What we did figure out is that at the time this guy was belting across the road, Shane was provably with other people. So
yes.
It can't have been
Yes. Yeah. If Shane had went to the garage and his brother had told him, I'm only doing that so they can jump on me and say, oh, fucking look, Mitchell. Like, my belief is John Ferris is the man that ran across the road. And that's only my opinion. There's no evidence here. I'm just going by what I've read over the years and seen. I don't believe that John Ferris left on that moped. I believe the killer left on that moped with some Dickie.
Yeah.
And the week one of the 3, he's run away. the description of the witnesses describe a man who's terrified. Now,
Yes.
I've spoken to a lot of people, and I've got some experience in general. When you get involved in heavy crime and stuff like that, the adrenaline kicks in, and you would run in front of parked cars and nearly get yourself run over. So, but that man, the whole point of this is that man was never chased.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting in itself.
Yeah, you just reminded me. I actually meant to start this. I'm sorry. I meant to start this with the incident of the graffiti on the V break. I'm not going to say what it says. Everybody's seen the image. Your thoughts, Scott?
Listen, I can't condone it. Horrible, and it doesn't do. The main thing for me is it does not do Luke Mitchell's case any good.
Yeah.
It's like putting stickers up at the police station. I'm all for it. Demonstrate. But spray painting that at the locus is disrespectful first, and it doesn't do his case any good. But what does spring to mind is like history's repeated itself. Mm-hmm. When I first got to met Corey Mitchell, 2006, that woman was terrorised. They spray painted their garage every night, fucking beast killer, over walls, over Scott's caravans, all colours. The business was burnt. And people will say, oh, he's a beast. He was never convicted at that time. There was speculation in the Daily Record that he was sleeping with his mum. I know you're going to mention her anyway. She passed caring. And people were right that he was a devil worshipper. He was sleeping with his mum. His mum was charged with perjury. All sorts. Just lies. Me and you know this lies. And everybody now knows it's like. And based on the lies, people terrorise an old woman. By the way, Luke's granny was living at the time.
Yeah. So
they terrorised two women. The granny died, and then Corey's left in herself. She has to sell her house, and she goes back up, and they're still spray painting the garage, and they're burning caravans when the woman's lying in her bed, and fucking shaking, terrified. And nothing was ever said.
Yeah.
You were spat in the street. People come to your home with a fucking knife threatening you. Dalkeith Police says nothing. The media says nothing. The graffiti. I can't condone it, and I'm not excusing it either. As I say, I think it's bad for Luke, but I understand people's anger.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, I genuinely, today was the first time I've ever read in the media where it was balanced.
Yes.
They gave us, oh, it could be this, and there's people angry. The first time I've ever seen that.
It's the first time I've ever seen them say a large group in the local community believe that there's been a miscarriage of justice. Now, that's more than 19 years, Scott. First time we've ever seen it.
They even mentioned the petition. 23,000 people signed it, and I'm thinking, the first time, we know this, the first time in 17 years, somebody's actually raised, listen, me and you through that area. Newton Granger got told it's 50-50. No, like split, guilty and not guilty. Dander Hall's got a website up now, and there's a couple of jokers, I mean real heavy jokers. Read the Daily Record, and they're telling you they're scientists, like, you understand the latest I heard, and by the way, he's a chromosome of, I'm not even going to say what I think, but they make you that angry.
Yeah.
He's telling the public there's DNA all over our body belongs to Luke Mitchell. Come on. Where do you read this, pal? And I get involved in, so I just switch social media off. But the first time, Sandra, listen, the first time in 17 years, I've read anything decent in the paper about Luke Mitchell, and through that graffiti. Now, people who are doing it, please stop. Anyway, listen, I try to get a plaque there. I'm not trying to be a good guy. Stephen from Firefly, remember when they done the documentary? Me and him spoke about putting a brass plaque close to where Jodi was found, right? A brass plaque with a wee clock, something, just something. Better than a spray painting, right? I do understand why people have done it. And listen, I'm fairly here, and I know the psyche of the kind of people, and the anger, but they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't do that.
Talking about,
it doesn't do Luke any harm either. It doesn't do him any good.
Yeah, talking about us both being in the same area. I've had quite a few comments saying I've lived in that area all my life. All this stuff about lamping and cruelty to animals, it doesn't happen. Well, I wouldn't have believed it happened either. It's different.
Listen, I'm trying to remember the name of the listen, there's a documentary, I can't remember the name, and it's Oh, Billy Cage, you know the Scottish nationalist. Billy Cage does a documentary about Eastuses and greyhounds.
Yeah.
Right, it's called The Vet. Everybody went, listen, he took the greyhounds in the exact woods where Jodi was found and used to beat them to death with a hammer once he finished running.
Yeah.
Dog fighters would go and he would give them greyhounds to take in the woods to let the pit bull terriers train on the greyhounds. Now that's common. Lamping, Joseph Jones is a lamper. On his way, I'm not even investigating, man. He's a lamper. He goes in the house at night for a lamp. He's doing it on Fox's face. He's shooting the deer. Listen, there's badger beaters. One of the sickest, cruel things you'll ever get is a badger beater. They dig up the badger and they put terriers in it, 5 and 6. That is not uncommon.
Yeah.
Mayfield, Eastuses, Gander Hall. Listen, that is not uncommon.
Yeah.
Please, listen, I grew up with
it. I think it is just, you move in the circles you move in, and if that sort of thing doesn't come into your radius, you're just not aware that it's there.
I remember that years ago, I think. He spoke one time about the colourless hairs. Jodi, do you remember? And people have surmised over the years, dog hairs. Some people have surmised. That's never been tested, forensically tested. I think they should have tested them. I'm about to find spaniel hairs. That's my opinion. Right? People say, how can you get dog hairs? You're a dog breeder and you won't mind spaniel dogs. You're covered. I've done some of these lines through it. Everywhere in my house is covered in dog hair.
Yeah.
And I've got one.
In the early days, I did consider something like a dog blanket. I spoke to you about it a long time ago. You know, maybe there was a dog blanket involved.
It wouldn't be unusual for somebody for Easter. She's a man. I've just explained honest. I wish I could text somebody right now because his feet Easter. He stayed 200 yards for Jodi years. He's now dead. There's a brilliant program. Billy Kay does it, and it's Waterford dogs, greyhound dogs, right? Everybody, right? Waterford. They show he's out the Easter with his dogs. Now he's took dozens of dogs into the fields and blankets over his shoulder. Just takes them in, digs a hole, puts them in. If he's kind, he shot them. If he never had a bullet, he put a hammer in it. Now, that man would have been covered in here. And if they walked a dog over his shoulder, maybe covered in a blanket, people don't want to see him, take a dead dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wasn't it? When I read somebody saying about you mentioning that, it's so far-fetched. It wasn't far-fetched. The only thing is they probably wouldn't have put a blanket. I think, my opinion, everything in that house, you've got 9 dogs or 2 lurchers or whatever, everywhere you touch, every bit of clothing you've got is dog hair.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a blanket. I see it as somebody, if the hairs prove to be dog hairs, I see it as somebody that's covered in dog hair.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Two questions in one here, and this is about experts and politicians. So we know, both of us, we've spoken to so many experts, including legal experts, over the years, and we know that there are many of them that think this is a wrongful conviction, that there's something terribly wrong with him, and likewise trying to speak to MPs. So we had the Hillsborough thing. Andy Burnham, after he got booed by the Hillsborough memorial people, went away and looked properly at the case, and then he came out fine, and he pushed and he pushed and he pushed and he pushed for the Hillsborough independent review. So why do you think in Scotland the experts aren't leading this? We are, and the MPs will not do. I've yet to find an MP even considering doing what Andy Burnham did. I mean, one told me years ago, oh well, yeah, you've got to think about public opinion. It'd be political suicide for me to come out and support. So what's your thoughts on the experts and the MPs, and why
MPs first? Or MPs first. David Hamilton, Sir David Hamilton. That says a lot to me. A car carrying communist miners to Woodburn. All he cared about was David Hamilton. And I've known him all my life, by the way. He knows my dad, the miners. And at the time, it was too high profile. And it was political suicide. If a politician at the time had defended Luke Mitchell and the way he was treated, they were finished. Would you want to get
why not now?
Now, yeah, listen, I've approached a couple nasty and still suicide. See now the tide's turned a small bit. You'll find that politicians might want to be brave.
Well, interestingly, one of Luke's supporters sent a copy of the book to Nicola Sturgeon, and it was returned. It was delivery was refused. It was just like, nah, not taking it. So, when you get to the stage where people are sending them information and saying, please look at this, and they won't even accept delivery. A copy of your book, by the way, but they won't accept delivery. So it's that blind, I don't want to know.
85,000 a year for a politician and 200,000 a year expense. A lot of money to give up to take up something controversial.
True.
Now, I've never led this. I'm getting there now, but that's a lot of money and creative given, right? Davy Hamilton's for Woodburn. I'll defend him here. He's for Woodburn. And Woodburn is, at that time, everybody knows Woodburn, Dalkeith, Mayfield. Luke was guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So over the papers, Davy Hamilton was sitting with coppers for Dalkeith on a Friday night and drinking his wine and port and all that. And then, but Luke Mitchell, do you understand? I'm having a dig at him a wee bit because he's so. He was ruining his career. Luke Mitchell was guilty once he found guilty and he had defended it. He would have had the backlash in his local community. As for the experts, me and you know that Professor Jameson and others have no led it. They're never heavily involved. They've always been supportive.
Yeah.
And they didn't lead the front. Andy Borum was forced. You remember the Liverpool fans?
Yeah.
That's for the 96. I put him on the spot. He tried to give him the same spiel. Oh, listen, I'm trying. And they turned on him viciously.
Yeah.
He was forced. I think it's happening here. The last couple of years, me and you both know, in the last three weeks, an advocate's been in touch about children's rights and how they were never afforded to look, and there's a possible stuff there. I also know another top QC in Scotland, one of the tops, is offered pro bono.
Yeah.
So if you're going to get legal aid, I'll take this pro bono. That's something special. We also know a High Court judge. Mm-hmm. If she wasn't now a High Court judge, I'm sure she would push it. Yeah. Her assistant, who's now a QC in her own right, she's very supportive.
Yeah.
They didn't want to lead it. It's controversial, Sandra.
So
controversial.
Do you think it's just going to be? This is my opinion. Is it's going to reach a point of critical mass, and then it'll be much less risky for them to come out front. And like John Scott, QC, John twice has come out in documentaries and been absolutely clear. There is something wrong here. So kind of, again, hats off to those that have done it. And maybe just a shout out to the others saying, guys, if you get together and come out as one, even if you're not convinced, even if you just support our call for an independent review, that's really all we're asking. I'm just checking my questions list. Oh yeah.
So I'm looking at all the comments. One guy's telling me sharp that they use can't get a word in, so I'll keep it in mind.
No, this is your
since the book was coming out last week, I woke up next morning and Twitter locked me. Never banned me. I can't send a tweet.
Yeah.
I can't like someone. I can't share it. Don't know why, right? You can imagine. Yeah. We've both got our own ideas. Yeah. Keith Brown is your Justice Minister in Scotland. Mm-hmm. Kenny McCaskill. This is a hope. Kenny McCaskill, I don't believe will be elected at the next general election because he left SNPs, went to have all that politics. Kenny McCaskill was a brave man when he freed Al McGrachy, right? But as a justice, now Al McGrachy and Luke Mitchell were convicted. The deputy advocate was Turnbull, Now, Lord, you know, Lady Scott told me one time she'd love to turn over every one of his convictions because of the way he won it. He's a genius, and we all know that. But she, look at his convictions now. If Kenny McCaskill was brave enough to do Al McGrackett, he's brave enough to help Luke Mitchell.
Yep.
I can't know the details of who are speaking because it's just wrong. But I didn't hope Kenny McCaskill loses his job. But
maybe,
if Kenny McCaskill was no longer an MP and he was free to speak, I think there's other people like Kenny McCaskill that will come. They will come.
Yeah.
Now, Sandra, go me and you look at that paper today. The first time the media convicted Luke, I'm going to call him Mitchell, that's his bad habit. The media convicted that boy. And the media can overturn it.
Yeah.
We know that. There's another MSP, a Tory by the way, I don't like his politics, but he's been pretty supportive.
Yeah.
For so far. And he promised him that me and him will go for a walk in Dalkeith and I'll show him things, right? He's been pretty supportive. More, you know, legs for the fun, and he's not put his face up, but he's been supportive, yeah? He's helped every way he can.
While we're on media and overturning and things like that, a certain journalist, for want of a better phrase, printed an article claiming 10 facts, and I'm not going to go through the 10 facts.
What did she say?
She was claiming 10 facts. I'm not going to go through the 10 facts. I just want to pick up on one, and there's a reason I want to pick up on this. So the one about how other suspects were ruled out, their whereabouts were checked. Right? How do you and I know that's not true? How many examples can you think of?
Oh, that doesn't.
So the CCTV footage and the phone data never checked. The phone logs never properly checked. What else have we got? Cross-reference statements. And you can see, and this is one that I wanted to bring up because I think it kind of just fell into place for me over the last couple of days. Now, we know that when Jodi's mum cancelled his doctor's appointment around about 3:25, she said she did that because Ferris was still in the house smoking with Joseph, right? That was her claim. We also know that that is not true because Joseph, Ferris, and Ferris's mum. So Joseph said Ferris left his house about 1:30 to go to his mum's to take a piece of cannabis for her partner. His mum said he left not long after 2:00 and he was going to Dickie's. Dickie and Dickie say that Ferris was there about 2:30, arrived about 2:30, and the two of them messed about on the moped, fixing the moped, till it was time for Dickie to go to his job centre appointment at 3:30. Now here's where this comes in. So that proves that Judith was mistaken. At the very least, she was mistaken. Ferris couldn't have been in her house at 3:25. But let's look at the claim by Ferris and Dickie that the reason they gave the wrong time to the police when they finally came forward was that the clock in Dickie's house was wrong. It was slow, right?
I'm not laughing just when you say Luke got convicted because
right. So the clock, they said, read about 4:30 when it was actually 5:15. So keep that in mind, right? It's 45 minutes slow, right? So it wasn't slow at 2:30 because we've got Ferris's mum corroborating that he left at 2:00 and him and Ferris and Dickie saying that he arrived at 2:30. So it wasn't slow then. It wasn't slow at 3:30 when Dickie had to go to his job centre appointment. Because if it had been 3:30 on his clock when he left for his job centre appointment, he'd have been 45 minutes late for it. So we now know that they were not mistaken about the time that they're on the path. They lied. It's actually pure and simple. The thing about the clock being at the wrong time is a lie because the clock wasn't at the wrong time at 2:30 and the clock wasn't at the wrong time at 3:30.
Listen, going back to the hard facts is the question, how the police examined these people, investigated everybody, and right, and I think if I remember the words correctly, it was a relative. I think they never investigated Dickie, Ferris, or Joseph.
No,
that's just a lie. The 10 hard facts is just a lie.
Yeah.
Listen, I wrote that, Sandra. By the way, I never put, sorry, I'm not being ignorant, I never put too much emphasis on wrong times and lying, because I lied throughout.
Yeah.
I mean, see
but
that?
in order to be able to give examples to people of exactly
yes.
There's another one that just straight away they said, oh, the clock was at the wrong time. If the police had looked at the rest of the statements, they should have gone back and said, well, how did you know it was 2:30? And how did you know it was 3:30 if your clock was wrong? You know, these were very specific times that they claimed.
See, now, I'm not thinking, give me a round. I don't pay attention. I never paid attention to that time and this time. And some went big time. This is my thing with Ferris. If you wait 5 days and the police are saying, please come forward, and you wait 5 days and you don't come forward, and then when you do come, you've shaved your in here. Come on, that's desperation stuff. You've destroyed the moped. I know that for a fact, by the way. Everybody in Mayfield knows at East House East. I'm not going to put the scrapyard's name out, but everybody knows where they went there at night and had access to it through stock car racing. So people have cut their hair, burnt clothes. We'll go back to the burning the clothes. John Ferris's mother and half sister were burning clothes on the night Jodi was murdered up at Stone Place. Stone Place in Mayfield, a couple of hundred yards away from Stone Place. And when it was reported to the police says it was in the wrong area. So you've got 2 boys at the locus. Imagine a bank getting robbed and I was standing outside it. And when I come forward 5 days later, I can't remember where I've been. I've changed my appearance. I would be in handcuffs.
Yeah.
The clock, I would have said, definitely once you went in deeper. But they gave them that much excuse to go and get a search warrant for Dickie's house Drive. It's a murdering. So I've been involved in these kind of things on my life as a lawyer. The journalist, I use that word very lightly, they use these 10 facts and says the police investigated other people. It's just a lie. A lie. Mark Keane was 100 yards away. 100 yards, and never investigated them.
We know that eventually in court, Senior Investigating Officer Craig Dobby was put on the spot, and he was asked, how many houses were searched? How many warrants were applied for?
Many. One. Luke Mitchell.
And he was asked how many houses were searched.
Right.
And he said 1, then he said, no, sorry, 2. Luke's mum's and Luke's dad's. And Donald Finlay said to him, well, you know, if there had been other places that needed searching, you would have gone and searched them, wouldn't you? And Craig Dobby's answer was, only if they would allow us. I kid you not.
Me and you,
allow us.
You've got a house 200 metres away from where Jodi's found. You've got 2 men at that house 10 minutes after Jodi's murdered who are at the locus. The first thing, listen, I'm an ex-criminal and a criminal lawyer and understand the process. The first thing I would do is strip Craig Dobby. See Vicky's house. It should have been ransacked. Should have had a search warrant in there. They should have had dogs in there. Judith's house should have been searched. It was never done. But it was contaminated because the night that it happened, they took Alice and all that back to Judith's house. Yeah. She's cuddled the body. She's got blood and she's got flesh on the body. She's now sitting in a flat in a house where allegedly the number 1 suspect is accepted now has been there, so they can't search that because it's contaminated. They never searched the gang hut, Yvonne Walker's house up in Mayfield. Jodi's there, Luke's there, everybody was there. So, like everybody of them that were mentioned as suspects, they never went to Alice Walker's, they never went to Yvonne Walker's, they never went to Dickie's.
Something I thought about recently.
Never investigated anybody.
Just when we're on about that, you mentioned in your book about both Dickies, junior and senior, being asked about sexual advances to Jodi being rejected, and we know they both were. They were
Yes.
both asked these questions,
Yes.
and Dickie Senior
Yes.
said in a newspaper article that he was so disgusted he put the police out of his house. Now, I thought at the time, yeah, right, because the police are just going to go, and then it occurred to me, does he mean he went no comment?
Listen, going back through in my mind now and looking over the case files, everyone were questioned about sexual advances towards Jodi. They were all 20, 19, 20, apart from Gordon, David Dickey, who's 40 odds at the time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Stephen Kelly wasn't really questioned, although his semen was found. My own investigations found a lot of people were pointing the finger at Kelly for having an affair. Even a once 14-year-old girl, right? Essentially, in this case, and the sister's boyfriend's getting questioned. The semen's on her t-shirt. Listen, I know. Common sense tells you if semen is found somewhere, you've planted it.
Well,
so everybody,
you need to be looked at.
Stephen Kelly was never looked at. There's another suspect. Mark Kane was 100 yards away, wasn't he? Looked at. The Rosalind rapist was Stephen Green. He wasn't investigated. There was no other person. Go on.
Just while we're talking about people that weren't investigated, you said about Dickie Senior being taken back to the locus and coming out with this nonsense about identifying a boot print of Luke's pointing towards Newbattle. Now, we know that in that trampled area of grass beside the fence with the barbed wire, with the barbs pushed inside, we know that they did find footprints, and they took casts of 4. They found 11. They took casts of 4. Never explained why they only took the casts of 4, but obviously none of them matched Luke's boots, or they would have been used. And somebody asked me on one of the groups, is it possible the killer escaped over that bit of fence with the barbs pushed to the side? But I've got a different question, and this is based on your theory of Jodi potentially being carried. Now, remember, in the hems of her jeans, there are these circular and semicircular cuts. If somebody was carrying her over that fence, the barbs are wide enough for a person to get over. But if somebody was carrying her legs and her head area would be wider. Is it possible that that would account for the cuts in the hems of the jeans?
And what I've always thought, I didn't think they went over the fence. See when you go over the V, right in front of the V, there's a gang hut, there's a fire, there's logs and all that. That's the gang hut, that's what I call the gang hut. Right beside the gang hut, at that time, 2003, when you go there now, there's still a wee bad wire fence, but most of it's damaged. But at the time, you could go over the V and walk directly without ever climbing a fence right in the open field. Now, my theory here, it's only pure speculation, I don't want to do Adobe. I think Jodi Jones never went over the V. I think she went over the big break in the wall up at East House's end, right?
Yeah.
And the quick way from there to Luke Mitchell's is diagonally across the open field. You can go into Newbattle Abbey College, or you can go to the Tool Hire place. So you didn't go down Rowan Dyke path. That's a myth. That's a strangers to that area invented it, Craig Doby and so to the open field to where she was found at the V19, you don't have to climb a fence.
Yeah.
Now, I've often thought that these cuts and the trousers was when maybe she was getting dragged, or when they were getting taken off her. I didn't even like talking about that. You know, like seeing them. It comes up, but listen, no, we will talk it. The reason I believe she was carried is because other functions in the body, and when we examined it, there's a gap. There's a white patch across the back of Jodi's legs, calf muscles, 3 inches wide.
Yeah.
So there was a pressure put on the back of Jodi's calves within 30 minutes of death, 40 minutes of death. That's very consistent with carrying somebody over the shoulder. Listen, we've all done it. Somebody over the shoulder and the arms like that.
Yeah.
That's what they mind. Yeah. And they walked in. Now, the thing that bothers me, listen, the guy, that Collins gave me a round for talking. too much here. Hey, listen, me, everybody believes that Jodi wasn't killed when she was found. Come on, we've been on this case 20 years. The forensic institutes, forensic psychologists, everybody. There's no damage in the ground. Somebody carried her here and dumped her. What puzzles me is who put her socks on and who folded her bra. Now, over the years, different people, everybody's always told me a woman folded her bra because it's folded in a way only a woman. That's what women tell me, no men. I'm clueless with it. White socks, see the wee blue socks. I've always think with me that that's somebody that cared about her. She's put some bit of clothing back on her for some kind of dignity. That's a terrible word. We know that the socks were removed. They've come off when she was getting dragged along the ground, right? And then somebody went back and put the socks back on, but they put them on inside out. Who done that? I've always believed that was somebody close to her that cared for her.
You see, there was always a suggestion that may have been a sexual deviance, something to do with feet and things like that.
Hard facts, sex was not involved in the Jodi Jones murder. Have you ever read so much nonsense in all your life?
Absolutely.
Never. And you couldn't read that in a comic.
I've said for years.
In the press. Oh, Sandra, I read that. And I read it. Listen, I'm going to go on to Facebook. I follow you people.
But I've said for years, they missed the difference between a sexual crime and a sexually motivated crime. And you know, you look at the injuries to Jodi. The very fact that a 14-year-old girl was found stripped naked, her body mutilated, her arms tied behind her back. I mean, sexual motivation, just because there wasn't what they considered a sexual crime carried out, does not rule out sexual motivation. And they themselves were on sexual motivation at the beginning. And
this is a bit saying things that's I'm an old man. It puzzled me, embarrassed me a bit. But because there was no vagina bruising, so there's no rape. So every sexual crime is rape. That's just nonsense.
Yeah.
That's what they fed to the public. Now we know in the first, I think, 14 days, 15 days, they're telling you someone was sexually embarrassed. So some in Lothian Border police at the time, they've got forensic scientists and criminologists, right, who would have said this is a sex crime. And then all of a sudden it wasn't a sex crime when it suited the Daily Record.
Well, this is another point.
That's a sex crime.
The stuff that's been uncovered over the years, because even as they were putting it out, so they'd done the sexual embarrassment thing and moved away and said it wasn't a sexual crime. But while that was going out in the media, we know they were still getting scientists to look at the possibility of rape using a condom. They were still trying to trace the origin of the batch of the condom that they found. They messed up the swabbing of the outside, but the question was, could a rape using a condom have taken place without leaving injuries?
Listen, we're not saying rape. How do you know that she never had sex with somebody? So there isn't any bruising. Well, I don't even like talk like this.
Well, no, I don't think that.
No, listen, we'll have to listen with your professional. See, there's another one of hard facts. Miss Hamilton's hard facts, right? Sex wasn't involved, and the used condom, fully fresh semen, 15 metres away from a mutilated stripped body, was irrelevant to the investigation. Have you ever read so much? I don't want to swear, but that's absurd. Yeah. And then she put in that paper, the police weren't interested in the man with a used condom. A used condom full of semen, 15 metres away from a strip. Girl, I'm not even laughing. And she's telling the public, but they weren't really looking for him.
But let's leave her out here.
Listen, I didn't even like mentioning her name.
So another thing, there's a couple of things I want to get in because we're going to run out of time.
Good.
The insect eggs in Jodi's nostril. Now, I don't know how many people know this, but there are certain types of insects that are drawn to dead bodies at different stages, and quite often, if they've not got a time of death through any other means, they can look at the insect activity, and that can give them an idea. So we knew there was insect eggs, and then the trio went dead. We never heard any more about them. Back in 2016-17, I discovered that there was a report on the insect eggs. And a professional brought in to do that, and he was traced. But when he was asked about his report, he said he couldn't release it because it had been requested by the Crown, and therefore the Crown would have to give permission. Now, my understanding of expert witnesses is that their duty is to the court, not to the prosecution or the defence, to the court. Correct me.
Well, listen, I remember the report, and I mentioned a case in my book, and you're familiar with it, Sean Toll. Now, Sean Toll's co-accused were acquitted in the High Court because, I'll have to get this right because people will probably, the forensic report was written on police-headed paper.
Yes.
Therefore, they say you must be biased. And he said, no, I'm self-employed. I work for myself. My research is done by me and who pays me. But it's on police head. So they got thrown out, and three men, the man who was guilty of the murder walked. Donald Finlay was accused here, right? They walk. So the man can't then claim he's independent if he's working for the Crown and he doesn't want to share that with the defence. He then works for the Crown. Come on,
that was my understanding. But I thought the rules about being an expert, a court expert witness, is that you sign a disclaimer before you even start, saying that your duty is to the court.
Now listen, I would have to go back and look at procedure. But my understanding is, if I'm a defence, I would hire my own one, unless the Crown and the defence agree.
Right.
That's accepted. See, if somebody writes a report like that report, and the Crown and defence agree and the sign like we both agree that, then it's both sides. Me personally, I would wrote my own report.
Yeah, but here we have again. Did the defence even know about that report? Because it's never been released to them. We've seen the papers. It's never been released. So now we have two things. We have a report that was commissioned by the prosecution to look at these insect eggs to get some idea, potentially, of when the murder happened. A bit like the FBI thing, it comes back and then it disappears. What was in that report that they didn't want the defence to know? And why can't we have it?
You've just mentioned something, and only it's a reasonable assumption. The word reasonable. The FBI report, me and you know that they spent how much, 50 or 60,000 pounds, taxpayers' money, flying to America, with Johnson, a nice hotel with a gin and tonics, and getting the FBI to write up this report. When the FBI write up the report and say there's no Luke Mitchell, they just take a big black felted pen and destroy it. They didn't give it to the defence, or sorry, they do give it to the defence, but by the time the defence get it, it's destroyed. I mean, you have seen it, you read it.
I don't think they did give it to the defence, Scott, because it wasn't in the files originally, and it was one of our very good journalist friends. Freedom of information in the United States, and that's how he got it. But because, once again, because it had been requested by Lothian Borders Police, they were the client. So once again, where's the independence of these witnesses?
Listen, my understanding that how I was trained in law, I got trained by good people where I speak to them. Trained by good people. Never take anything. In fact, if you want a serious crime and there's a report commissioned by the Crown, read it. If it's no suiting you, go to your own Professor Pounder. I went to Professor Pounder with Sean Toll, and he override Basuto. I went to Basuto and I said to him, Mr. Basuto, I'd like to show you something. I've got that wrong, I think. I said, you've got it wrong, like the boy's doing 13 years. I said, you've written this report, and I'm a joiner, by the way, I'm a carpenter, and I measured the wound.
Yeah.
And I knew he was wrong, and a carpenter's telling a pathologist, I've got this wrong, Scott. And then I got told, never ever take any of their words. If they don't agree with the defence, go and get your own one. And not like going Pounder and And you'll get two pathologists who will disagree. You'll get two psychologists who will disagree. And Luke Mitchell's defence were very lazy.
We then have the issue. We then have the issue of the cell site data, so the tracking of the phones, which we always believed had never been done. And then we find in the defence files that Legal Aid actually turned them down for funding.
And then they lost the files.
Yeah, now you have an issue where the defence can't go and get their own opinion because Legal Aid won't pay for it. So that means to get a proper defence in Scotland now, with the Legal Aid funding that's available, it's virtually impossible.
It's a long time since I made these kind of applications. But I don't believe that you wouldn't get it. What you do is, when you apply for legal aid, they type the budgets. So you go and ask them, I want to hire a pathologist, and he's only cost 20 grand, and they say, but the Crown's already got one, you have to accept what the Crown have. Oh no, you go back and tell them about human rights, Article 6, and you have to put an argument in. You can't just sit back and say, okay, legal aid's one. You go back and say,
I don't think
they never done that.
No, I don't think it was legal argument. The Legal Aid Board came back and said the expert that they'd chosen was too expensive and they'd have to go and find a cheaper one. So whether they ran out,
I wouldn't buy it. A long time since I've done it, but if I got a response from the Legal Aid Board that told me you cannot hire that expert witness because he's too expensive, I would go back and tell them, Justice, Article 6 and justice overcomes expense.
Yeah.
You're trying to get me to get a cheap. Or you agree with the Crown? No, you go back. See, when you do legal aid, it's a long time since I've done it. But when you fill in line, they come back and they get you online, oh, sorry, you can't get that because this and that, or the Crown's are there. You have to go back and argue. Look, you need this. This isn't the interest in justice. It's this man gets a fair trial. And you get, not all the time, but you get. Sorry, before we forget, I'm not looking at the time. And polythene. Spoke earlier on. Listen, do you remember? Listen.
So let's start this at the beginning because this was a rolling series of discoveries. So we always knew that Jodi's body was rolled onto a polythene sheet before the forensics got there. We always knew that. Now, when we were looking once again, or when I was looking at the crime scene photographs, we discovered that the step plates that they put on the ground to protect the scene stopped about 4 meters from where Jodi was actually found. So
I thought further than that, but okay.
Yeah, we've got photos of the step plates, and then we've got photos of where Jodi was and where she was rolled onto the plastic sheet. And for a long time, that's what we believed the situation was until, do you remember? When we noticed through the plastic.
Remember that? They dragged. I want to tell your audience, this is how botched up this investigation is. If there's ever an example, there's 100 examples, but this is a perfect example. Jodi's lying like this on her side, and a photographer, not a police officer, not a forensic, whatever, a police photographer, takes Jodi and she rolls her onto a sheet of polythene, clear polythene. And I'm not laughing, but I'm laughing at the idea. They drag Jodi on top as she's lying on top of a sheet of polythene, and they drag her 5 or 6 meters. I think it's bigger than 4, but and they drag her into the light so they can take nicer photographs.
And the only reason we figured that out is that she's on the polythene at the bit where she's found. And then the next series of pictures, you can see the step plates underneath the polythene. So that's the first thing. The second thing about that, now we know the body bag was never tested.
It was a polythene.
You said yourself, she's on polythene and it's raining onto the polythene. So stuff would just be washing off the polythene, but still the polythene was never... It was never tested.
I go back to a building site. Polythene covers wet. But if you leave polythene out overnight when it's raining, logic tells you it's going to be puddles.
Yeah.
Puddles. So Jodi was left on a sheet of polythene. The rain's coming, so she's getting wet, covered in rain, but it's forming puddles. They come in the morning, they roll her off the polythene, put her in a body bag, and the polythene got discarded. It's full of DNA and blood and hairs and in a puddle. They just discard it.
Yeah.
I didn't mean this disrespectful, but China's carpenters and some jobs wouldn't do that. They would treat the polythene with more respect than what these people did with Jodi lying on the sheet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scott, we're almost out of time, and I didn't get through all the questions. So,
that's all right.
Are you up for coming back for a part 2 for the questions? That
only if Colin tells me I didn't speak too much. I'll do that. Listen, I'm up for anything.
Yeah, I've got another call tonight. So.
No. What time's your call at 8:30?
8:30, yeah.
Well, you want to go at 8:15?
No, because I need to set the other one up first.
Aye, okay. Listen, no, I totally appreciate that. I'll come on anything.
But, well, first of all, thanks for coming on a Friday night. It's been a bit of a frantic week with one thing and another. So
I must tell you, it's been a good week.
Yeah.
And I tell you wee bits. I've cancelled me for Twitter. Carol Toe. He's come on. Connolly, I'm only joking. Carol Toe, his son suffered a serious miscarriage of justice. They're both me and Sandra know, and she's coming. Brilliant, Carol.
It's one of the things I wanted to say, actually, is people think you and I have only worked together on Luke's case. That's not the case, people.
No.
A number of cases over the years. Very often because nobody else would.
Listen, can I tell the world? This week, I've been accused of all sorts. The 50 grand, by the way, is the funniest. That's the deepest, right? I've dealt with that nonsense, right?
Yeah.
Now I had an affair with Corey Mitchell.
Oh, Scott.
2006, I had an affair with Corey Mitchell. And by the way, this week I've been getting told to sign my book for Sandra Lean's bed book. I'm an affair with you, or no? So affairs I've never heard of it. An affair I've never heard of it. I've never had ever in my life. And I met Sandra, and I must tell the whole world this. I met Sandra and Corey Mitchell, I think 2006, 2005, something like that.
Yeah.
And I've always been contacting Sandra Lean, monthly phone calls, and sometimes 3 or 4 months I've not seen each other. We worked Sean Toll case and Luke Mitchell case is obviously prominent. And I've never had a affair with any. This week I've had it all this week. I'm barred for Twitter. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's 2 of us had an affair that we knew nothing about.
Now listen, the best one I heard, I was Luke's stepdad. I had an affair with Corey, and I was only sticking up for Luke because I had an affair with his mother. Can I tell the public how bizarre this is? Just I've had two bottles of beer. Talking about affairs. Corey Mitchell was accused of burning clothes in a back garden. It's one of the biggest nonsense in this case I've ever read. He burned clothes. Listen, you need accelerant, and when I seen the fire that this Parker was built on, Jesus, you couldn't burn socks, right? Now you couldn't have that fire and not leave a trace. See, when you burn a fire, the things go over your garden. Corey Mitchell was in a closed garden. It wasn't a semi, it was a mid-terrace. A person, like, the garden's enclosed, so everywhere, if you had a fire, everything would be covered in plants. They found nothing. The people who reported, I forget their names, so they're getting away with it lightly. The people who reported, we smelt something strange coming from Corey Mitchell's garden. It's 4 days or 5 days after the murder, and it's all over the paper that he was the only suspect. Now, everybody in that local area, including me, wanted to do good. There's a wee girl murdered, and everybody's quite excited, not excited in a good way, but people are worried and they want to do what's right. They want to catch the killer. It's a brutal murder. The people who report a fire in Corey Mitchell's garden, the son, the house overlook each other. Like it's a mid-terrace, 2 mid-terrace, back gardens face on each other.
Yeah.
The son goes into his bedroom and spies on Corey Mitchell lying in the garden sunbathing. I'm not going into what I think he's doing, but that's his business. I believe the husband's doing it as well. And the wife is giving the son and the husband, what are you fucking looking at Corey Mitchell for? So all of a sudden, she's got something in her garden that smells bad. She read the statement, Sandra. I read it years ago, and I've read it a few times since. And reading the statement, anybody in law, and No, you look for words quick that highlight something in a statement. What's important? Do you know the more important thing I took for other statements? Corey Mitchell, the tap with the tight trousers and the knee-high boots. What the fuck's that way they were murdered? That tells me they were getting, the boy and the husband are getting it tight in the house for a henpecked husband looking at Corey Mitchell sunbathing, and eventually that tap with the tight trousers, and all of a sudden the wife likes him for telling the police about the tap with the tight trousers and the knee-high boots. That's how bad this case is.
Yeah.
This is what convicted a wee schoolboy.
Yeah.
The mayor, you won't be starting. I'll have to go on the beer tonight, you know that.
Yeah, I need to call it now, Scott. Unfortunately, I've got to go because I need to get
listen, good seeing you. Listen, I hope you're enjoying them. Is it Cornwall?
Don't tell people.
And then you tell me, oh, no, sorry, I shouldn't even say that. Oh, you're enjoying your life with your bus.
I'm not in Cornwall anyway, but...
Angeline, I'll tell you something before we go. Yeah, I didn't want to go any earlier. No, I'm not going to go any. But you see people aren't leading to the front. There's two people talking to each other right now on screen that led for the front. You more than me. I've disappeared for years and had to get on with things and come back, and you've always done it. And now I'm into the fight. You know me, I'm into a big fight, you know that. And I've got people saying, I didn't want to name them. The top two, there is a top QC in Scotland who's, listen, brilliant on board. When I phone them for advice, and an advocate last week telling us about child rights, and there's hundreds of people involved. They've just never been wanting to put themselves on the front line.
Yeah, we just need to pull them together as a team.
That's changing.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. That's changing. But listen,
I need to go.
All right. Tell Colin I'm sorry for talking too much. All right,
all right,
son. I'll talk to you soon, mate. Ciao, pal. Ciao.
Bye. Bye.